Okay, I have a number of requests for a tour of FrankenCoupe, so we'll try and give you one real quick here. I'm using a GoPro and there's no viewfinder, so bear with me. I don't know how this thing's going to line up or not. So, front of the car, you can see it's just a little bit wider. It's been flared right through here, about 1.5 inches or 2 inches. Push the bumper out so that it would match that. Of course, it opens things up. Doesn't fit real well. I throw some tape on that when I'm on the track. You know, everything's about as little money as fast as you can go, so it fits fair. I mean, I could have a body shop do it, or I could spend a couple of weekends fooling with it, but not worth it. Okay, I'm sure y'all want to get to the motor first, so we'll do that. Front of the fascia has been cut, and the bumper's been cut through. There's a oil cooler, a set wrap oil cooler behind there, and it's shrouded so that it forces air into that intake and through an oil cooler. Really keeps the oil cool on this motor, surprisingly. This is a Euro front bumper for a Z3, and I guess it's considered to be an aero bumper. The brake duct intake there works real good. Alright, so hood pins are removed. You can see cold air intake there, or my version of it. Again, quick, easy, fast. Whether it ram affects or not, who knows, doubt it. But it doesn't seem to affect it in a negative way. I get no buffeting even at 165. I get no issues with the motor. There's the map, throttle body, the V8. V8 fits right in there, fits right underneath the strut bar. There's no modifications to that at all. No modifications to the rails. The headers are an off-the-shelf Hedman block hugger header for an LS1 motor. This is an LS2 motor. The head configuration, the exhaust ports are pretty much the same, so it's a non-issue. I'd like a little bit bigger primary, but it works. And it was cheap. Like $250 is better than spending $1,500 or $3,000 for customs. Filter, obviously. Right next to it is the fuel pressure regulator. Fuel lines. The coil packs are on the top. So one coil for each cylinder. The alternator is nice and low, keeping the center of gravity on this much lower. It's actually got a better center of gravity and also 100 pounds lighter than a stock S52 motor. So the aluminum block on these things really makes a difference. That tank over there is a breather tank for the crankcase. And aluminum, basically a stock configuration aluminum radiator. Works great, keeps it cool. I have no problems even on 100-degree track days. Set wrap coolers right here, plumbed into the block of the motor. You can see it's not a very big one. It's only about that deep. Basically just fits right into the bumper area here, and keeps everything nice and cool. That's the OEM front auxiliary fan. I got it wired into the ECU for the GM ECU on a relay, and I also have an extra switch inside so I can turn it on as soon as I get off track, and because there's not as much air flowing obviously in the paddock. Stock S54 overflow tank. The cooling system works great, and I used a piece of 1/2-inch copper tubing for the returns right there. It goes around over into the heater input side of the heater lines for the water pump. That's pretty much it. That's the map. That's the atmosphere pressure sensor for the intake. And that's pretty much so. That's the water temp there. And I also have another water temp sensor on the other side. These heads on an LS2 motor are identical. You just swap them on both sides. And I use this one for the ECU and that one back there for the gauge on the dash. Oil pressure sensor is back on the back side there. And this can here is a fuel pressure sensor. Alright, the brakes, stock rotors, Carbotech pads, So between the brake ducting, or the air ducting on the backside that has a plate on the backside and blows into the rotor vanes, and the Carbotech XP20 pads, I have no issues. Those are 10-inch BBS 28 offset. It's a 10-inch spacer on that. Excuse me, 10mm spacer on that. And the reason why I have that, one is to set it out just a little bit, but primarily because I needed the hub-centric ring. These BBS center bores are a little bit large, and so you have to get the center bore correct so that you get a hub-centric setup. 275 40 17s. These are FrankenCoupe tires. I usually run a Hoosier. When I run the Hoosier, I run a 275 35 17. I think I said 14. 17-inch tire. You know, pretty basic tire. This one's a little bit harder tire. It lasts a little longer. I went up to Laguna Seca. It's the first time I was on the track. I didn't know how things were going to go there. I wanted to use a hard tire, so I didn't use things up too bad. And also, they're a lot cheaper. Okay. I think that's it. Oh, the backside here, we got a spoiler. This is like an $80 eBay spoiler. You know, standard stuff. It comes with basically hardly nothing. I guess there's a little bit of mounting hardware, but it certainly wasn't going to fit this. I used the connection point for the strut that goes to the hatch, and comes out. That keeps it from getting pushed back. There's a tie-in point to the body right here, so bolted into that. I cut the hatch just a little bit to fit this all in, and then of course a cross member to keep it from racking side by side. It's basically these pins are here so that when I take this out, then I can literally lift up the hatch. It's no problem. Actually, it bolts this way into the hatch, not into the body. And so you can open up the hatch and get into the back. No big deal. Taped on rear numbers in classing for the weekend because they were really being touchy about having our numbers everywhere and classing. So I just threw it on at the track. Electrical cutoff switch for emergency workers. Fire pull here. There's a bottle in the back. I don't know if you can see through this plexiglass or not. Inside here, you see the back cage. That's a, let me open up the door, it's easier. That is a oil cooler pump for the transmission. Takes oil out of the bottom of the transmission, runs it through a cooler into the pump, and then back to the top of the transmission. Drops the oil back down on top of the gears, flows through, and just keeps it running a lot cooler. On the track, you need it. The OE, or the GM ECU, and then an auxiliary pack for relays and fuses and such for the engine management. A couple extra fuses for my stuff that I've wired in. I just made a dash out of some aluminum. It was lighter and easier to work with. It comes out on and off really quick, and take it off in about 5 minutes. And easier to work with if I need to get in there for something. Gauges are pretty basic. The bottom two are brake pressure for brake bias. The red knob over there is to adjust the bias for more front or more rear clamping force. That uses a dual master cylinder system, and then that bias runs a cable over to the brake pedal when it pushes on the master cylinders. It pushes one master cylinder more than the other, depending on how you adjust that bias. Air fuel meters, I put those on there originally when I first set the car up because I didn't know how this tune was going to be, and I didn't want to burn a valve up on the track, so I was able to keep an eye on stuff there. Really don't use it for anything anymore. The fuel pressure, it's good to have. Something starts acting up with the motor. Are you out of fuel, or is it something else? I do not have a fuel gauge in the car. water temp, oil pressure, and oil temp. And the reason why there's a little space between those two gauges is that's right where the view from the steering wheel, so you can't see anything there anyway because the steering wheel's in the way. So you can see the two oil gauges through the steering wheel and everything else on the left or the right side of the steering wheel when you're sitting in position. And of course the tack is on the steering column. Steering column's an OEM steering column with a hub. Obviously the steering wheel's removed, but that allows me to get in and out of the car easy. Go on the other side and show you the master cylinders. Okay, so hopefully you can see in this light. Master cylinders are pretty basic. You see some welding in there. No chuckling at my welds. The frame was, or the cage was welded by a master welder, but my welds are a little different story. But it holds. Rear brake, front brake, master cylinder. This wire here is actually for the brake light, and we run a brake light on the track so you don't run into each other because we ain't that good. And then that's the master cylinder for the clutch. Some braided hoses about 1 foot long going into hard lines, and then the hard lines go out to the various locations. That's the stock OEM gas pedal and potentiometer for the adjusting the throttle body out on the motor, and then tilt and set up for the brake and clutch. The shifter is actually it's a long shifter handle, but I'm using a Hirsch shifter. It's modified for the Jericho transmission. And then there's also a fire pull inside for me. And had to modify the tunnel just slightly. Modification versus via a sledgehammer, just banging it out a little bit, pushing it out just a little bit, bowed out right here in this area. And then I needed to cut just right here to get the shifter into place properly. It was just more effort to try and bow it out than it was just to cut it and cover it up with some aluminum and call it a day. The seat is an ultra sealed seat. You can see that the wing on this side is modified. They modify it at the factory, and it's a beautiful job. If you take it off, it would look like it was made at the factory, or they did it on the factory line. There wasn't any cutting and splicing back in. Fits really nice, inexpensive. I really recommend Ultra Shield for you guys that need something that's a good seat with not a whole lot of cost. Also, the harnesses are made by them, and again, good price. That's it. I used the OEM mounting points for the seat. And the reason why I do that is that I figured that BMW probably spent a lot more time engineering those mounting points than I ever could figure out. So I maintained that and worked it accordingly. If you see the little cap over there on that side next to the fuse box, that's an OEM, parts of the OEM fuse box wired in for just my stuff. What do you call it, the overflow tank, or whatever you want to call it, for the brake fluid is right there. That's where I put my brake fluid. I keep it there, keeps the heat out of it from the engine, so it's not in the engine bay, and works pretty good. It's just looped over into the master cylinders over here. So then all 3 master cylinders are connected to that one reservoir. Reservoir, that's it. Okay. This is just a safety requirement that NASA has for a side net, and then of course a side net on the door on this side. And that's basically it. I think we've pretty well covered everything. Plastic windows keeps it a little bit lighter, and we're going to call it a day there. Okay, any questions, just drop a line. Take care.